This is Viewpoints' collaborative show. It's called Reaching Out. A small group of artists have reached out into their community to someone they identify with, and the art you see is a result of that collaboration. It may be a family member, someone that they know personally, or someone in the community, and the art is as unique as that collaboration.
I've been involved with the Merwin Conservancy for about 5 years and have had the opportunity to go out to the garden many, many times. I've done a few different things, I've had some different art that's come up from my experience of being out there. And over the years, met Olin and just enjoyed him very much as a person. So it was very natural for when this exhibition came up and I was invited to participate, for me to simply continue down this path, really. And I've always really loved art and science, botany and science. This is something I've been very interested in for a long time, especially in really kind of partnering up with the plants and the photographic materials and almost introducing them. For me to, ask Olin if he was interested in doing this was just, so easy. And I knew that just based on what I had known about him, that, if he was willing to participate, that it was going to be fun and easy, and it was.
I work for the Merwin Conservancy. I'm the Palm Collection Manager. I've been there for 15 years. My work encompasses the plant health care. We give tours to public groups. We also do student education series. And I've been honored with the opportunity to apprentice under William Merwin and learn his gardening practices and ecology methods. So the Merwin Conservancy is a special garden that William and Paula Merwin started themselves 40 years ago. The vision was to restore denuded wasteland that had been neglected by pineapple farmers and to restore it to a native habitat. And through those efforts, William had discovered that it wasn't so easy to restore a piece of land. There was a long process. And through that process, he discovered that the soil could not support native plant life anymore. So, except for the native Pritchardia palm. Through that discovery, he realized, well, if the palms like it here, then this is what it'll be. It'll be a palm forest. And through the course of 35 years, the garden has really become a refugee garden for endangered palms around the world. So in the course of that time and his travels, he's collected endangered species throughout the world and has built an amazing collection that is perhaps the third or fourth largest private palm collection in the world. The interesting thing is, after all these years, the soil has improved, so the original intention of rehabilitating the land is now an opportunity that can come to fruition, and we can now introduce some of the native plants that were once there.
When Olin and I first came together and I asked him if he would be interested in doing this work with me, we just sort of began conceptually talking about, what we wanted to start working with within the garden. And going into the garden is really an awe-inspiring place to be. There's very, very tall trees and a dense, wild feeling to it. You're sort of taken in by all of that, the density of the place. And in talking, we realized we wanted to go to the essence and wanting to work with the seeds and the dirt and the smallest parts of the garden. I had just begun working with these lumen prints photographically for me, I'm very much into the process of photography. So rather than being somebody who's really drawn to the picture taking, I'm much more of a printmaker, or the image making part is the part for me that really holds the most mystery and the most inspiration. So I often love to work with chemistry and heading into what's sort of known as alternative process-based photography, where the mystery of the process will reveal itself in unknown ways. So when we started talking about working with these elements, and I had just begun this experience with these lumen prints, I was really excited to see how the two would interact. And that's how I really feel often with these processes, is that I'm sort of introducing them to each other, and then I step aside, and whoever else is involved gets to step aside and just sort of see what is revealed. So there's a lot of magic and a lot of mystery that's unknown that just turns up, and that's really, really great to witness all of that. Like I said, I have worked with this lensless type of photography often, so I have a sense of what might occur. But in all honesty, taking these elements and bringing them together does reveal things that are unknown. Lumen printing is working with silver gelatin paper, which is a basic photographic paper. The best results for lumen printing are papers that are very old, so they've already sort of entered into a state of disintegration, and most photographers that were working in the darkroom wouldn't want to use these slightly fogged or aged or disintegrating papers. So in that state of breaking down, the plant life then is put onto the paper, put into a contact frame, so they're very, they're tight together, and then put out into UV light for hours and hours and hours. And what starts to happen is the interaction of the two chemical processes start to mingle and react. The process of doing photograms is a very basic process. You can take three-dimensional objects of any kind, put them onto sensitized paper, expose them to light, and get several different results depending on what you do with them. In the case of lumen printing, there is no developer involved. It's the chemistry of the plant life with the chemistry of the coated paper that react together. They create the image, and then because you are still working with a light sensitive material, the silver halide or nitrate in the paper does have to be fixed. On occasion, I will also use toners, which will adjust the color a bit. So that's one way of changing the overall look of the print. And then the last part is adding the photo, or creating photoencaustic images, so adding wax over them as well, which is something I'm just very drawn to in accentuating the very tactile, layered quality that I think really does well with this type of print.
Working together was very enjoyable. It was a great collaboration between the magic of this form of printing along with the wonders of the garden, and the process in which we collected our materials was very exciting, because we would simply explore throughout the garden looking for suitable materials that would work for this process. Prior to this, Gwen would share her images with me, which always excited me every time I saw them, and we would maybe meet up occasionally at certain events, and she would always have a small portfolio of her images, and I was always eager and excited to see what she had produced. So it seemed relatively obvious and natural for us to work together on a project like this that would encompass the garden, the theme, and her knowledge. So it very much is magical in the sense that you don't know what the end result will be. The end result was unknown, but it was very gratifying as far as what we achieved. So I learned a lot working with Gwen.
Working with Olin was just a lot of fun and very natural, and more than anything, just easy. What I got to learn about Olin as an artist is that he also really loves process. So, process really is kind of typically taking a long journey. It's not about instant gratification, and it's not about knowing that what you might get is always going to be something that you want, but you will always learn from it. So in working together, it was fun to be with somebody who just wanted to take a journey down into the unknown. And it was, in many ways, going back to, the fun and the joy of experimentation. And that's really what started with the process. When we were out collecting plant material, it was like being on a little treasure hunt. So working with Olin was really, really fun. I'd love to do it again.
Anna had first reached out to me probably about a year ago. She'd seen my work in a gallery and told me that they had a taro farm, and that if there was anything I wanted to use from the taro farm that I could use with my work, that I was welcome to do that.
My family's from Maui, but we moved home a couple of years ago, and we were just kind of trying to search and find ways to reconnect with the island. And when we were on Oahu, we always had a garden. We had started growing kalo or taro just to eat ourselves as a family and make poi to feed to our young children. And we had this amazing opportunity. Some friends had some ag land that they weren't using for ag yet. And they told us we could use the land because they wanted to see the land being productive to grow food. So we're new farmers. We're new farmers for 2 years. But we're really interested in kalo just because it's such a fundamental element in Hawaiian culture. It's attached to our genesis as a people. And it provides a lot of nutrition for our family. So we started in a little plot, and we just kind of got addicted. And now we've expanded over the last 2 years to about 1 acre. And we've really been trying to study the heirloom varieties of kalo, learning about them, learning how to grow them, learning what they taste like. And then we started kind of finding out that the kalo plant was used for other things too, including making dyes and making art. So this connection with Denby is perfect for us to continue to learn.
When we started growing kalo, when we moved to Maui, we were a little bit floundering. We just moved here. Although her family was here, we didn't feel super connected to the place yet. So for us, growing kalo was literally and figuratively putting roots into the ground. And once we started to do that, kind of a whole world of opportunity opened up for us. And in part of reading about the kalo plant, I read that you could use it as a dye. And then I didn't even know that Denby was on Maui. And I went into a shop, as she said, and I saw her work there, and I thought, this is amazing. And so that's how we connected.
Well, we were in school together on Oahu at Punahou. So we were classmates. Our class size is big. It's like 450 people. So Anna and I, she said, we always knew each other, but we were never close friends. So I really like that we're getting better acquainted through this project. That's kind of my favorite thing that's coming up from this. Anna first connected with me through Facebook, right? Mm-hmm. And then we just communicated a little bit that way, and then just made arrangements to go out to their property to meet out at the farm. And they brought their kids, I brought my kids, and I brought all the equipment to show them how the dyes are made, because I thought that would be important for them to learn, since they are interested in the kalo so much. So it was fun. The kids played together in the little wading pool, and we made sure no one caught on fire while we were cooking up the dyes, and it was fun just to do that. And then I've only stopped by once since then, so their farm's very impressive.
I love this piece, and I love this partnership because we didn't really know what we were starting when we started the farm. Really, it was to be more connected. It was about relationships, having a relationship with the Aina, and to strengthen our relationship as a family unit. But then it kind of just started to expand and unfold, and we started to, have these opportunities to create relationships with friends and family that we could share the abundance of our crop with, and then new friends and family who wanted to be involved in what we were doing, and now old friend becomes a new friend.
The kapa is made from the bark of the vauke plant. So it's the inner bark that you use. It's called the basal layer of the tree. So you take that, strip it, soak it in salt water a little bit to help kind of soften it up, and then you need to soak it in fresh water because you can't have all that salt in there. And then that's pounded out. And then once that's the size and shape that you want it, then you can go ahead and start dyeing it. So I dyed so that's what I did with this piece. Then I dyed the background color with this pink color, and then layered on top of that with additional dyes made from the kalo. So the darker dyes was also the ele makoko that I just boiled down. And then this piece in particular is the Hawaiian moon calendar. And the reason why I went in that direction is because these guys plant the kalo every month at the full moon, which was a practice that the Hawaiians did. If you look at the Hawaiian moon calendar, it's pretty extensive, all the days of the different phases of the moon and how it correlated to fishing and farming practices. They really tailored their activities to the phases of the moon. I like that they're doing that aspect, in their farming, because with kapa, there's this whole revival of kapa happening right now. There's many kapa artists throughout the state, and there's a lot of different ways to do it. Some people add chemicals to help ferment their kapa rather than using like salt water or just other natural methods. People are using acrylic in their work, and I've experimented with that a little bit. I don't do that. To me, that's not kapa. That's not the Hawaiian practices. So the fact that they are also, experimenting and learning with their farm and their kalo, and that they're also doing the same Hawaiian practices that our ancestors were doing with planting by the Hawaiian moon calendar, just kind of shows a value that we share in our work. So I wanted to bring some attention to that. So the other piece that I did, the background is also dyed with the ele makoko, the purple dye that you get from that taro plant. And then the rows of ohe kapala designs that are on there, they're all different designs. And that was just to resemble the varieties of kalo that are growing out on the farm. Because if you go out there, they have all these different varieties and different stages that the different plants are in. And so I wanted to show that variety in the piece.
For the future, I think we're going to continue to grow kalo, and hopefully we'll be able to expand our knowledge and to expand our reach into our community. Our goal really is to try to feed our family, but also our community. I think that's very important. But to go along with that, of course, is all of the other projects that we're now getting to be involved with. So I'm hoping that maybe our kids will be able to do a project together. That's what I hope for.
We're expanding, I think when Denby came, we had maybe like 20 or 25 heirloom varieties, and we have another probably dozen that we're going to plant tomorrow. We're expanding our collection. There was once, some say about 300 varieties of kalo. There's about, about 50 or 60 that we know of now, so we're just trying to collect them. And what's really fun about that is the storytelling. Each one has its own name and has its own story, so we love learning about that, and then our kids are small enough, they really love stories too. So that storytelling aspect is really important culturally, and it's something that we're really enjoying now. And something I really appreciate about Denby too, because she can tell a story through art in a different way too, and that connects us a little bit deeper too. So this is going to be fun.
My older daughter did say about a week ago, she said, when are we going to go back to our friend's taro farm? I want some taro. We haven't had any. so she's missing it.
my project, when I started this idea, it was rolling around in my head. I was in a waiting room, and a friend of mine had given me some magazines. And the magazine's called Trim. It's one of those independent magazines. And there was profiles on different people that had some connection with Hawaii. And the article I was reading was about Garrett Lisi and his theory. He's a physicist. His theory of everything that he had been working on for many, many years. And apparently he lives on Maui part-time and has a physics retreat up in Pukalani. I was just kind of fascinated by that, and I was reading the article. I'm going, this is really amazing. This is kind of on the heels of the movie, the Stephen Hawking's movie, The Theory of Everything. And I think a lot of us knew about that, how these mathematicians are just, they're out in a realm, are physicists that lay people like me, I don't really understand this, but I'm so fascinated by it. But anyway, from the art perspective, I was also fascinated with the mathematics that we see in nature and the connectedness that we have it. We have a lot of things like fractals and Fabriani sequences where things are odd numbers, the spirals that we see in, like, say, a nautilus shell or a fern when it's unfolding, or your ear. So I was always kind of fascinated with that mathematics within human nature, all of it, from earth to people. Anyway, so I'm reading this article, and I'm going, wow, this, and he had these beautiful geometric drawings that were actually, they were presented in the magazine as 2D, but they're actually 3D. And I was thinking the 2D would work really well in some kind of a painting, like to embed it, either a landscape or an abstract. Anyway, so that idea was kind of rolling around. And I was invited to participate in this collaboration show. So I wrote him, this Dr. Garrett Lisi, and I said, crazy, random idea, but would you be interested in this project? And he got back to me and he said, yes, I would. And I said, great. So I went to his house, I met him, and he gave me all of his mathematical stuff. And then in the course of that, I found out a lot more about him. There had been quite an article in Scientific American, 2010, a really in-depth article on him. And he's very well known in the physics community, and here he is on Maui. So that's how the idea was born. What happened at that point was trying to come up with this collaboration. I started thinking, this is great. So he gave me everything. I'm thinking abstract landscape. That's kind of my wheelhouse. And somehow embed it, like start with an oil painting and then, embed it, put some encaustic layers on it and just keep layering it up. Maybe some drawings. And I got back to Garrett and I said, how do you feel about doing this? He goes, no, I don't want to do that part of it. He goes, but the drawings and all that, this all looks good. And I said, I'm thinking, I need somebody else to collaborate in actually physically making this piece, now that we had the idea. So I asked Judy, because I know Judy's color sensibility. And I thought that we could work really well together.
Well, she called and asked if I could help collaborate on this project. I thought it sounded like a good idea. And she sent me all Garrett Lisi's papers. And I read through them and I thought, whoa, this is serious physics. My husband's a mathematician, but he doesn't go into that kind of heavy-duty theory. But I still thought, I think what really impressed me most was the color, I'd say the beauty of his actual geometric structure. And that's what I thought, we could do something with this. It would really be a nice collaboration. So I too was thinking in terms of encaustic, because I thought we could do some different layers. I wasn't coming from a landscape point of view so much as just working with color and form and shape, and that's what attracted me, and that's how we sort of got interested. But you might tell a little bit about how we collaborated, because that was kind of fascinating.
So we thought, okay, so Judy, I knew she has a really strong printmaking background, as well as painting and encaustic and a whole variety of things. But I thought mainly what I liked so much was her color sensibility kind of fit with mine. You know, I'm not like a super bright color person necessarily, more, try to get more, I love earth tones and landscape colors. So I had some wood panels, which I thought would work good because when you put the encaustic on them, it's not going to crack on you. But I thought, how about if I start with a very simple abstract landscape, embed a couple of these drawings here and there, and then Judy's going to take the drawings and she's going to do some collages on a wood panel. We're going to each start independently of each other, not looking at what the other one's doing. And here's the degree of trust and the fun, I think, collaboration part. We started that way, and then we traded. So then she got mine, I got hers, and the goal eventually is to create a work of art that's balanced compositionally, color-wise, and saying what we want to say. Mm-hmm. So it was very interesting because I got Judy's, and this was Judy's start, and this was my start. And so now I'm working on Judy's, she's working on mine. And we're kind of doing opposite things because Judy's was filled up from side to side, corner to corner with information everywhere. And mine had tons of open space. And so Judy went to work trying to fill up the open space, putting it on, taking it off. Mm-hmm. I was trying to cover up some of her stuff and create some open space, but then leave little bits of information. So I thought that was a very interesting way we went at this, you know, to arrive at a workpiece that was pleasing to look at and also interesting. So I added a little texture to Judy's, a little bit more, I don't know, it just kind of, they evolved. And then...
Yeah, it was interesting too, because when I took it too, I added a lot and then would take off, and then I'd add more and I'd take off. And I would ink under... because we hadn't quite done the encaustic yet. So I would ink, and we're starting with a very elegant landscape that's very minimal with his form, and was difficult. Once you add, every element you add, it changes it. And mm-hmm. I personally like the simplicity of the simple landscape. So it was difficult to add too much without being able to take off. But underneath these little elements that you take off, they still show through. So it's kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's a work in progress. I think we ended up with little bits of history where it showed where she had put on and taken off, and a little bit still remained. And the same way when I'm covering up parts of hers to try and simplify it and hone in on some sort of a focal area, there would be little bits showing through. So there was history in both of them, but coming from different techniques, I would say, from a busy to a simple, and a simple trying to increase it a little bit. So, yeah.
I actually had a great appreciation for Garrett too. Every now and then when I have free time, I'll go back into reading his thesis, which is very difficult to understand a layperson, mm-hmm. but there are parts of it that I do understand, and I think the more I read through it, the more I actually would like to meet him someday, and I think it's really interesting, mm-hmm. interesting work. His theory is still, it's a theory, but it's still out there.
Mm-hmm. Most of it's energy, like I don't understand all this is getting out of my realm, but you know, we all have these energy fields that are coming, I guess, from electrons, the positive, negative energies that everything has, from plants even to a rock. So when I was looking at this piece, the one piece, when it kind of started to evolve, we realized how much energy was happening in the collaged piece. And so that's why hence the energy name. Whereas the other piece, just speaking of the names, the E8 is what, they have these theories in physics that are geometric patterns. They start very simple, like one's just gravity, and then gravity plus something else, and it goes all the way up from, it's called a Lie or a Lie group, I'm not sure how they pronounce it, L-I-E groups, and they're numbered E1, then E2, so on, up to E8. And E8 is the most complicated one. And that's what he is working on, where he's put all these different types of energy mathematically into one theory and then eventually a form, which is what we're dealing with, the form. So how we got there is like beyond us, but the form is what we can hugely appreciate.
no matter what medium I'm working in or who I'm working with, every single time I try something different, it sparks an idea for something else. And I'm working on maybe 2 or 3 other ideas right now, but Terry's always fascinating to work with because she's got, going up to her workshop, she's got every tool and color known to man. And I'm just thinking, wow, this is a fabulous place to work. But it's fun to be able to take off in more than one medium. I think that's what interests me most about collaborating, is being able to work outside of your comfort zone and try something different.
I think that trying to combine the scientific world of physics into the artistic world of interpretive art maybe, but I think if you consider that art is a reflection of culture, which I think it is, all the way through as time's gone by, art is a reflection of culture at that moment in time. And I think that this moment in time, Dr. Lacey's trying to come up with this physics theory. And as artists, we try and put that into our pieces. And I think it blends very, very well if you come up with that premise.
I knew I wanted to work with Rich and with bamboo because we have such a long relationship over the years in different roles. So I didn't have to think about it. It was just like, oh yeah, if I get it together, I want to work with Rich.
Well, I was stumped creatively as to what we might put together. I was thrilled that we could choose bamboo to, highlight in an artistic, aesthetic approach, because I've been building and using it more in the mundane world. So I was nervous from a creative point of view, but excited from a collaborative point of view. Well, I grow this, or everything but the glass part, as a sustainable building material here on Maui, with the idea to replace the imported 2x4s and 2x6s that we use to build traditionally here on the islands. So we have a timber bamboo plantation, and we treat our poles and market them.
Working with bamboo or wood, bamboo is such a new material for me that I have no idea about how to handle it. I had a lot of ideas, but I didn't know how to translate them or what was possible. We made a date and I drove out to Kipahulu. We met out there and we just spent a good couple of hours just brainstorming about different ideas and what we could do. And, finally we're able to get it to something that I felt was very exciting, and with my new knowledge of bamboo, I would be able to materialize in the world.
And I think for me, the challenges were around the roundness of the material, the hollowness. No two pieces are the same. Trying to share with Karuna enough skill set for her to take that information and create a piece. As you can see here in her piece here, there's just so much movement and so much shape. Beautifully put together, but I felt that was a challenge in the beginning.
It took a lot of patience to figure out the practical issues of putting the piece together.
I think there's a certain organic methodology that she used there, just starting and building upon that with whatever. She had an array of different sizes and shapes that we created for her to use, and then as she was working it, she was able to put them together much like a jigsaw puzzle.
I knew I wanted the round shape because I felt it kind of picked up on the roundness of the bamboo. When I first started working on the piece, I had a different idea in my mind that I wanted, because I work with the murini, which are glass canes that I cut up. So it's very similar process than actually working with the bamboo, in that I make the canes, I cut them up, and then I arrange the design. Originally, I thought I would incorporate Morini into the piece, like more in the empty spaces of the bamboo, but because each, as Rich said, each bamboo piece has a different diameter and isn't totally round. That was technically, I don't want to say it's not possible, but it would have, the piece wouldn't be ready now. So, and then I came up with making the smaller glass rounds that I felt also mirrored the rounds of the bamboo. Also, a similarity between my Morini bowls and this piece is, I think, one of the things I like the most about my Morini bowls is the reflections that you get once the light passes through it and what happens on the background. On this, by kind of moving it a little bit away from the background, you also get the shadow play, on the background.
The creative process was the part I felt most challenged about, as I stated earlier, and when Karuna approached me, she also sent some ideas that she had been thinking about, and she had done some web work and sent some ideas of other artists working in bamboo, and so I began to look at it. Immediately I went to, let's use black bamboo because that's more exotic, less familiar to people, and I knew that has an allure all of its own, an aesthetic all its own. Finishing the bamboo so that the texture in these end cuts comes out is something that I knew how to do and I knew how to highlight. Cutting the bamboo is a challenge, and I had worked that out for a while, so I had a certain skill set to bring to the creative process. It was the overall concept that had me stumped.
I used to work in the office of a family that owed the land in Kipuhulu. I've seen the land go from that and the bamboo being planted to now you go out there and there's mature bamboo groves with the most incredible bamboo, and it's to a big part, his passion for the bamboo and for sustainability and organic growing of anything that, made that possible. And, my piece is called Connections. It was such an amazing process for me, sitting there for hours kind of connecting the bamboo pieces up with the copper wire that really made me appreciate all the connections we have with people and with the land and how we stay connected throughout the years. I'd like to continue working with material. Bamboo is such a versatile material. I would like to explore it more. In that shape, where you cut it round and you incorporate it with glass, but also in its, upright shape and what can be done with cutting into the bamboo and finding another dimension yet to it. So I'm excited about the material. I love what emerges when you cross-cut it and the pattern. And so I don't think this is the end of my journey with it. So you'll see more of me.
Perhaps the interesting thing about bamboo and glass is they're both highly, have high contents of silica.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah. The bamboo particularly, of course the glass, we all know that, but the bamboo has a high amount of silica. So the marriage of the two finished products together, I think, is there's a lot of contrast there, but there's also a lot of similarity when I look at them because of the silica base. And as Karuna says, that's just one dimension, the crosscut. But bamboo cuts in a number of different ways, and it'll be interesting to marry the glass to the bamboo in 3 dimensions and in different longitudinal cuts.
Yeah.
So I'm excited about it.
Yeah. Me too.